What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to Studs and Duds, the most comprehensive NFL player review series on the internet. I am your host, Marcus Whitman, recording this at 3:30 in the morning here. It's been a massive endeavor here to get this done these last couple weeks. We did NFC last week. We're going to be talking about the rising and falling players around the AFC conference from weeks 10 through 13 here tonight, this morning, as you'll be watching it. Before we do get started, like I said, this has been a massive endeavor. So if you please could hit that like button down below, really appreciate it. It really helps me out. There is a direct correlation between how many views these video gets and likes. So it really does help me out. It's not just a stupid thing. Thank you. That's all I'm asking for here is we're on hour 16 straight of working on this thing here. Can't wait to go to sleep. But let's get into it. If you are new and want to know what Studs and Duds is all about here, so we are going to be going team by team, talking about the rising and falling players from around the league. And while we do that, you're going to be seeing ratings changes from my own custom Madden roster. I've been making this roster since 2016. Can proudly say it's been the #1 community roster 6 years running now. So while these ratings do stem from a video game, these ratings do show how I perceive these players in real life, and these changes are derived from my own film research and film study and research on these players. So it does show how I feel about these guys in real life. But without further ado, let's get started. Again, please do hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed as well, and let's get into it. And you already know who it is for the Bengals star of the month. It's Joe Burrow, who to me has cemented himself as one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, really entering that conversation to me with a guy like Josh Allen for being the 2nd best quarterback in the NFL. That has changed rather quickly. You know, Josh Allen starts throwing the ball to the defense, making mistakes. Meanwhile, Joe Burrow has 1 turnover-worthy play since week 3. Yes, you heard that right. He's producing, he's throwing with anticipation, he's using his legs when he needs to. Joe Burrow, not discussed enough how he has emerged as an elite quarterback, an MVP candidate that got the Bengals to the Super Bowl on a great run in his first full season after, getting injured as a rookie. But man, I can't speak highly enough about Joe Burrow. The comp for him coming out was Tom Brady from the waist up, Aaron Rodgers from the waist down, and you're really seeing that come to play as we head into the playoff picture for the 2023 season. But he's getting some help as well. Samaje Perine has stepped in and performed more than valiantly. I mean, I'm genuinely impressed. I've always thought of Perine as kind of a little slower, a little stiffer, whatever, like decent backup. And he's been that, but he's been so much more since Joe Mixon got hurt these last few weeks. You're seeing real explosiveness, consistency in the run game, making guys miss. 100 yards against the Chiefs. They really have not missed a beat with Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon's teammate there. And like I said, genuinely impressed. And then Chris Evans as well has gotten some added opportunities with Mixon out. Not Captain America there. We're talking about the former Michigan back, and he's been doing just what we saw him do at the Senior Bowl coming out of Michigan, catching balls out of the backfield, showing that shiftiness. He's a good athlete. He's kind of the perfect complement to a guy like Samaje Perine, and just another nice weapon to have there. And then Trenton Irwin needs to get some respect here. Don't know if there's a whole lot there, but he was the wide receiver 3 that stepped in with the Jamar Chase injury and played his role. He caught some back shoulders and was a reliable option. And they've needed somebody to be reliable for it. They released Michael Thomas. He wasn't that. And that'll be a nice thing to have in their back pocket if they need it. And then Hayden Hurst has been really good here. He's been getting to be a bigger part of the offense, and he's been really consistent catching the football, having one of his better seasons as a pro. And then the offensive linemen, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, both these guys free agent signings. Both guys have dramatically improved the offensive line here. And just another excellent wave of free agency here for this front office, as this was their biggest need, and they've done their part. And then on the defensive side of the ball, these linebackers really showing up, not just in run defense. The Bengals have been spectacular defending the run since they've gone on this run, really. But Jermaine Pratt, former third-round pick, high-level athlete, listed at playing at like 250 pounds. I mean, he's a full-size dude, and he's putting it to work now. He's tackling better. He's defending the run better. He's been better in coverage, playing for a big contract. He is not some low-upside linebacker. He may have been in the league for 4 years, but playing next to Logan Wilson there, it's an underrated linebacker duo, to say the least. But Logan Wilson as well has been awesome. A big thing with him last year was missed tackles. He has cleaned that up. He is also just a really big, fast, quick, smart linebacker, one of the more underrated guys in the league at the position, and a big reason that this run defense is as good as it is, why they were able to dominate against Derrick Henry. And then these corners as well have really stepped up with the injury to Chidobe Awuzie. Well, Eli Apple, you know, he's not a perfect corner. He's going to grab a little bit. He's going to be out of position occasionally. But for the most part, he has done a great job stepping in as this team's number one corner. Are you a little bit worried about it? Do you fully trust it heading into the playoffs? No, not really. But you could do worse, I think, than what Eli Apple has been for this team. And he was really good in that Super Bowl run last year as well. So if they can get that version of Eli Apple paired with Mike Hilton in the slot, who's playing up to his pay grade as one of the best slot corners in the NFL, and an emerging rookie here in Cam Taylor-Britt, that could be just fine. And let's talk about Cam Taylor-Britt a little bit. A second-round pick out of Nebraska. Really athletic dude, really quick. He's got length. And I wasn't quite sure what to think about him. He was pretty hit or miss at Nebraska, and he's had his ups and downs here in Cincinnati. But the last few weeks, he's really settled in. He's coming downhill, playing physical, and I like what I see so far. So that's going to be a big pivot point as far as how he plays in the next 2 months of football. If this team can match their now Super Bowl expectations, but from what we've seen, he just might be capable of that. Before we go any further, I got to tell you guys about my new friends at Underdog Fantasy. You've probably all seen the screenshots up on social media right now from a lot of your favorite content creators. Well, that's because Underdog Fantasy is freaking awesome, man. Their pick'em contests have gotten me back into daily fantasy. And this is where you're able to parlay certain player props. You're picking anywhere from 2 to 5 players, and you're picking over-under on whatever stat line you want to go with. You can go with receiving yards, field goals, interceptions. You can even pick fantasy points over-under. And the payouts can be huge, up to 20-1. You can buy insurance, which I recommend, by the way, so you only have to hit, or it protects yourself from missing on one of your picks, and you still get paid. Like I said, man, this has gotten me back into daily fantasy. I have played almost every single slate that I've been able to. If there's a lousy Thursday night football game like Raiders-Rams until the last 3 minutes when Baker Mayfield decides he's rookie year Baker Mayfield again, you're going to be dialed in waiting to see if your picks can hit. You're talking about a $2 entry to win up to $40 on that $2 entry. So even if you lose, it doesn't really hurt, and it gets you dialed into these football games. So I love it. I know you guys are going to love it. It's at Underdog Fantasy, and at sign up, use promo code TFG to support my channel in the process. Then we are going to stay in Ohio with the Cleveland Browns, and not a whole lot of movement for Cleveland this week for one reason or another. The star of the month, however, is going to be third-round rookie cornerback Martin Emerson, highlighted here by a dominant performance against Mike Evans, but has just been a rock for them all season long. We've talked about how he's such a great fit matchup-wise with who else they have, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward. They are fast, oftentimes off the ball guys. Get them in space, let them cover fast receivers, let them move. Martin Emerson, on the other hand, you see him following Mike Evans around and just matching the size with the press and the ability to contest those contested balls. And gosh, he's just a really physical, young corner, and seems to be the perfect fit in this secondary and a great draft pick who's only trending up. We might as well talk about Greedy Williams going down. He's basically been fully benched here. He's a dime back at this point. I just don't think he's a great fit. And this is a mostly zone-heavy system, and he just is more of a bump and run. I know that's kind of how we described Martin Emerson, but I do think Emerson's a more heady player, watching the quarterback's eyes and playing in this system. Greedy, it's more like try to ride a guy's hip pocket, lean on that speed as a makeup. And I just want to see Greedy go to a different team, maybe like Kansas City. Keep an eye on that. Or New Orleans, maybe. A team that loves bump and run man coverage. I still think he can succeed. But he has been getting targeted here. He's just, I think, checked out, and he's got to come down. And John Johnson as well. He's just been a totally average safety, honestly, since the Browns signed him. It was such a good fit with everything they had going on for the Rams with that split safety defense, but it's just not all there for him. He's having to play in more space, and he's just not a great athlete. So it's hurting him a little bit. He's not necessarily getting burnt or playing horribly, but he's not there to make any plays either. You're not feeling that impact from him. So he's going to come down. And then let's just round out the defense here. There is another linebacker here. I don't know if there's another team that has a more confusing linebacker rotation than the Cleveland Browns. It feels like every week they're trying a new hat out. I don't fully understand it, but Tony Fields is a talented player, really good first step, a good run and chase, smaller linebacker. They've got plenty of them, but he's been rotating in certain reps, being a secure tackler in those opportunities. And then Jacoby Brissett, it's going to be a little tribute to him on the way out of Cleveland. Going to go up to 69 to a 71. And that puts him in that kind of fringe starter territory. Someone to certainly keep an eye on for teams like New Orleans and the list of teams looking for those bridge quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett was far from the problem here. In fact, he played better than Deshaun did in that first game back against Houston. Not saying that's going to keep up, but Jacoby did a really good job here. Really smart dude and is just, I think, getting better the longer his career goes on. And we'll see. We'll see if he gets another opportunity. I think he's earned it. Okay, now on to the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of up and down, kind of a weird, streaky month for them. So let's start with their star of the month. It's going to be Patrick Queen, the athletic linebacker out of LSU, former first-round pick. And he started playing better a little bit before Roquan got there, but now getting to be this team's number 2 linebacker, just kind of following orders from Roquan. It's been a match made in heaven. I mean, Patrick Queen is really instinctive. He can read the quarterback's eyes. He can make plays in coverage. He can run and chase. And when he's allowed to play fast and doesn't have to overthink things, you get to see the upside of a Patrick Queen. And I think you're seeing that sort of force multiplying effect of bringing in a Roquan Smith onto a Patrick Queen who looks really, really good back there now. So he's going to be their star of the month after starting the year. I was saying he needs to be benched, and Ravens fans were agreeing with me. He was playing that poorly and has really taken that to heart and played well. So that's commendable. Tip of the cap to Patrick Queen. But let's start now with the offense, where we're going to talk about Kenyon Drake coming down. Pretty self-explanatory if you watch him. He just doesn't look very explosive. The Raiders let him go. Time for him to come down from where we had him previously. But Deshaun Jackson at 36 years old, he's only playing 15 snaps a game, which is how you want to use Deshaun Jackson. But he is making the most of it. He catches that big bomb in the Jags game. He's catching some out routes. He's doing some stuff. And still looks really athletic. I think he recorded one of the 5 fastest miles per hour charted by the GPS already this year, which is just insane at 36 years old. Deshaun Jackson, what a legend. I don't think he's really a Hall of Famer, but you can't really think about the last decade plus of football without thinking about Deshaun Jackson as one of the best deep threats probably to ever do it. And then Demarcus Robinson, you're going to get some respect. I know he had the big drop in the Jags game, but the week before that, he had like 100 yards producing. Nothing crazy here for Demarcus Robinson, but he's been all right as a cheap free agent addition. Mark Andrews is going to come down. It's not that he's been poor, but he's had some drops. He's had some fumbles. He's just had some mental mistakes. Hasn't been the same Mark Andrews that they're counting on him to be and what we know him to be. So just going to ding him a little bit here. But Josh Oliver, on the other hand, has emerged through this crowded tight end room, still out-snapping someone like Isaiah Likely, and he's been the reason we haven't been able to really see Charlie Kolar, although Kolar's just coming off the injury report. But commendable for Josh Oliver, who was drafted for his athleticism, gets traded away from Jacksonville for a bag of peanuts, and gets into the Baltimore machine and has made the most of that opportunity. He's been blocking much better. He's been decently reliable in the receiving game. Looks like a decent kind of backup tight end. And then on the offensive line, this is really coming together here. So Patrick McCarry has had to step in at left tackle as Ronnie Stanley's been in and out of the lineup. Gets that start against the Jags and was outstanding. Locked down Trayvon Walker. McCarry has been a reliable tackle for them when they've asked him to play. So he's going to go up. Morgan Moses, the veteran. We kind of knew this was a match made in heaven for this scheme, a scheme that we've seen a guy like Orlando Brown thrive. Morgan Moses is Orlando Brown. They're like the same player, and putting him in here, he's having one of his best years in his career. And then Ben Powers at left guard. He's a lot better moving backwards than he is moving forward. He is not some great power blocker off the ball, but they just can't move on from him when he's legitimately been one of the most consistent pass protecting left guards in the NFL. I believe this is a contract year for him. He'll be an interesting name to watch. We've seen a lot of these interior guys move on in recent years, and then they funnel the new dude in. Is Ben Cleveland the replacement here? Potentially. What a combo of a competition there. Ben Powers, Ben Cleveland. It's like a super squad of some kind. But yeah, we've seen Bozeman and Jensen leave, be successful elsewhere. Is Powers going to be the next big free agent out of Baltimore's interior offensive line? Then we got Tyler Linderbaum, the center. Just continues to be so impressive in the run game. He's getting better, I feel like, week by week in pass protection. It was always going to be something that he might take some time to get used to handling NFL athletes, given that he is a smaller center. But his wrestling background totally showing, his athleticism totally showing, and he continues to climb. And then defensively, Broderick Washington for the third Studs and Duds episode in a row. He has been a really pleasant surprise, and we kind of said it when they drafted him, like, look out for Broderick, just jokingly, because this is what this organization does so freaking consistently. In a league where it's tough for teams to develop interior defensive linemen, it really does take a lot of mental discipline and work behavior, but they get that out of these guys. Broderick Washington, a fifth-round pick out of Texas Tech who did some decent stuff there, really a non-factor for a couple years, but now becoming a full part of this rotation and doing a little bit of everything, defending the run really well. He's even getting after the quarterback. Just a really nice piece. Another guy for Baltimore to move in and around. But while we said that about Washington, we also said that about Odafe Owe, and it is surprising that he has regressed so badly here in year two. Really burst onto the scene early in his rookie season and just hasn't been that guy, honestly. Looking back at how he finished last year and certainly into this year, he's just not really getting after the quarterback at a consistent level. But what's really fallen off for him is that physicality in run defense. You're not seeing him contain the edge and make those splash plays in the backfield like he did in his rookie season. So we got to ding him. Still, I think, a bright future ahead for Odafe Owe, but I think this is justified. And then into the secondary, Marlon Humphrey, certainly a star of the month candidate as well. Man, he has re-entered the top three cornerback conversation. I think he's been there a couple times in his career, but he's been the best player on this Ravens team this year. He really has, and his lockdown coverage is really shining these last few weeks. You can move him into the slot, play him outside, zone, man. It just doesn't matter. This dude's a rock star. So Marlon Humphrey going up into the 90s. And then the safeties here, Chuck Clark is going to come down. You can just tell he's having to play more deep safety in this kind of new look system. And now that they have Kyle Hamilton to play down in the box, and it's just not Chuck Clark's game. He's just, he doesn't have the speed and the range and the coverage instincts to handle that, and it's hurting his all-around game. So he's coming down. He's probably on his way out here, I would think. But Kyle Hamilton, man, he's been awesome, and it's the way they use him is just so perfect. He plays a lot of time in the slot as like a slot corner. If the matchup's right, he plays strong safety. He'll occasionally play free safety. If you go back to my draft analysis, this has played out exactly kind of how I projected him. I said he's not going to be a top 10 pick. He doesn't have the athletic ability that you kind of need to have to be a top 10 pick at safety. He's more of a matchup, strong safety, needs to be in an emphasis on him needing to be in the right system where they'll use him around the line of scrimmage, let that length and instincts kick in. And that's exactly what they're allowing him to do here. And that's why the Baltimore fit was always so great. So he's been one of the best rookie defenders, and that's really come on recently. And it's been the whole picture. It's been the run and chase tackling, the run defense, the coverage he can offer. You know, we talk about a guy like Adrian Phillips coming up here in a little bit for New England. And him playing that kind of hook zone, middle of the field, roll defense, and just being lethal there. That's really what I think of with Kyle Hamilton. And then we're going to wrap up the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Kenny Pickett's going to get some love, man, as this team's star of the month. He just looks the part. He looks comfortable navigating pressure. His pocket presence has honestly been a little bit better than I thought it was at Pitt. Yeah, I thought he constantly bailed from clean pockets, but maybe he's getting some coaching or heard the criticism of that. Maybe that was the first time he heard that criticism. You never know what kind of coaching these guys are getting. There's still a little bit of that, but we're seeing him hanging tall in pockets a little bit longer, I think, than he did at, it's complicated because it's Pitt at the University of Pittsburgh. But the deep balls look good. The ball velocities look good. The whole 8.5-inch hands thing doesn't really seem to be holding him back as the weather gets colder. Yeah, he really looks the part, man. So he's going to go up. And I tried to defend this pick. When people said this was the worst pick of the draft, I was like, I don't know. Like, is he the highest upside quarterback ever? No, but he was my QB1. I feel very good about that right now in this draft class, at least as far as like impact and feeling good about him being the guy that you can plug in right away. And they can build a team around Kenny Pickett with all these playmakers, get this defense a little better. It's a way that they can go about winning. I'll say that. Is it a super good formula for success? I don't know. Time will tell. Probably not, but it's better than what some teams have to offer. We got a lot of movement in this running back room. The run game in general has been so much better. Jaylen Warren going to go up one. Warren's been a really good receiving back as well. He's been a nice find, an undrafted pickup out of Oklahoma State. And then Najee Harris, we've lowered him here this year, but he's going to get that back. Just, I think the last couple weeks really resuming his dominance. I think things around him are just starting to settle down. The passing game's been better. The offensive line's been better. And he needs a little bit of room to breathe, but man, open space. He can make guys miss, put a stiff arm on, good in the receiving game. And it's good to see him back, former first-round pick. And then even Benny Snell, who I have trashed on this channel, looks as good as he's ever looked. I think he knows he's the odd man out here, but he's running for his life. He's running for his NFL career. You got to respect it. He's had some tough short yardage situations, making a few guys miss. He's been one of the worst running backs I've watched get legitimate playing time in the NFL over the last 5 years or so, but you got to give him respect when he's playing well. And then with the receivers, Deontay Johnson's going to come down one. I still love Deontay. I think the separation ability is still there, but the hands are just so rough for him. The drops continue to be an issue, and it's just hard to sustain as a true number one wide receiver if the quarterback can't really trust you. And when you do trust a guy like Pat Freiermuth, it's easier to disappear in the short to intermediate game for a guy like Deontay Johnson. Freiermuth's been awesome, man. He's got the big run-after catch against Atlanta, making some big, tough catches. I love Pat Freiermuth. He is a tight end's tight end. Does a little bit of everything. Blocking's improved this year. And just super reliable, good all-around player. And then Connor Hayward. he's been getting in for some opportunities and making the most of them. Weird 6'2", 230 pounds, just a football player. That's really what he is. Tight end, slot receiver, H-back, whatever it is, he can play. And he gets in against Atlanta. They scheme open an open look, and Kenny Pickett leaves it a little bit in front of him, but he lays out for it, secures the catch to the ground. I like Connor Hayward. He's the brother of Cam Hayward here in Pittsburgh. And then the offensive line, Kevin Dotson, having another really good year, just such a rock in pass protection. He continues to just incrementally climb as his Pittsburgh career has gone on. Mason Cole as well, the center. They pick him up from Minnesota. You remember, he actually beat out the center, James Bradbury. I always get those two guys confused. James Bradbury, right? No, Garrett Bradbury. Final answer. He beat him out in Minnesota last year. Was a bit of a surprise. Bradbury was struggling. Cole stepped in, was a little bit better. Pittsburgh took note. They bring him in here. And he's a former third-round pick, I believe, out of Michigan. Am I getting that right? Let's double check.
3 hours later.
Yes, nailed it. Only 26 years old, been in the league for 5 years. There could be a legitimate something here, you guys. This is not your typical, available free agent. I think this could be very much legit. They need a long-term center. And why not the Pittsburgh Steelers finding a guy like Mason Cole to be their long-term answer? So you heard it here first. We'll see. Then flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, things have been better, but no thanks to Tyson Alualu. I just think it's time. He's 35 years old, coming off a serious injury. You're not seeing the defensive stops. He's getting passed up by guys like Chris Wormley on that D-line. And yeah, I think this is the beginning of the end. Look for a retirement possibly from Tyson Alualu for a nice career for a guy that was dubbed as a first-round bust. Kind of turned things around, had a nice little back end of his career here in Pittsburgh. Jacksonville wishes they got that at the beginning of his career. One of the weirder first-round picks that I remember, just the pick came in and I was like, Tyson, a who? But yeah, on the edge, Alex Highsmith continues to play really well, definitely benefiting from getting TJ Watt back. Just a very complete, honestly, just baby TJ Watt. That is the best description of him. We know how TJ Watt can get after the quarterback, and Alex Highsmith can do that too. But just like TJ Watt, the run defense, good. Able to get his hands up, deflect passes, drop into coverage, do a little bit of everything in this scheme. Highsmith's just the perfect complement to have a mini version of TJ Watt on the other side of the ball. Athletic upside, third-round pick. He's starting to meet it. He's a legit player, man. He's a good 2 opposite of Watt. Then these linebackers, Devin Bush going to go up +1. And honestly, Miles Jack has really struggled against the run lately. And I think they like what they have in Robert Spillane there. So he's been rotating in. Both these guys have been better run defenders than Miles Jack, who has had his struggles this year. I thought about lowering Jack. It might be time in the next episode if he can't turn things around. But yeah, Devin Bush, former first-round pick, starting to figure things out, missed a season due to injury. And Spillane, he's had his opportunities to kind of play and make splashes. He seems like a decent player, could be a replacement-level starter if need be. And then in the secondary, Arthur Maulet, second year in a row, he's getting some pretty significant opportunities. That's about all I will say about it. He's a physical player, heady guy. He's a limited athlete, so you will see him getting beat in coverage. But they definitely like his mentality out there, his IQ. So that's why he's playing. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end, got to go up for that dominant superstar performance he had Week 13 against the Atlanta Falcons. The game-ending interception, coming downhill, making plays. Minkah probably having his best season as a free safety here. And I think finally throwing his name into that conversation for the best safety in the NFL. I have stayed away from that because he really has had his inconsistencies, either as a tackler or in coverage. This year, it's all been there, the whole package. You're not getting big years from Jesse Bates and Kevin Byard. So I think Minkah entering that conversation this year. And then the punter, Presley Harvin. Check out the punt he had against the Atlanta Falcons that set up the game-winning interception by Minkah Fitzpatrick. Presley Harvin's had his ups and downs, but that punt was incredible. It was like a Madden bounce where it just drops at the 3-yard line and just stops, and that was in crunch time. I mean, the Falcons were in a position to score at the end of that game, but you pin them back like that, you make Marcus Mariota panic a little bit. That's how you get a game-ending interception. So Presley Harvin getting a little bit of love. Okay, then we got the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills, not a ton, honestly. They've kind of been, for the most part, who we know these guys to be. But it's been a lot of role players getting some opportunities here. And you can kind of call these running backs role players. Devin Singletary is going to be our star of the month. He was just kind of our best selection here. You can maybe go with Ed Oliver with a 10 sack. That would be crazy. A 10 pressure performance against the Minnesota Vikings. But I'm going to go with Devin Singletary. He's really caught my eye. He looks twitchy, believe it or not. That's not really what he's known for, but the acceleration has been awesome into the hole. And he has really shown me that he's got one of the best jump cut juke moves in space, whether he's changing lanes to redirect or to just make guys miss. I've just been impressed by Devin Singletary, who's fended off a lot of other theoretically more physically talented backs in Buffalo, and is probably having his best season as far as eye test is concerned. But James Cook as well is coming for that job. They've been rotating these guys. I love the way they use James Cook. They bring him in for the right designed runs and give him some space to operate, and he's looked explosive. He's been making guys miss. He's shown some good vision as well, something I didn't always see from him at Georgia. You know, he's not Dalvin Cook, but he does have similar athletic ability, and he's made the most of it here, and he's been great in the receiving game as well. Just really begs the question of why this team traded for Nyheim Hines, and maybe Nyheim Hines has been able to coach James Cook up. Hines is a really high character guy who would be totally willing to do that, and maybe he's been in James Cook's ear and helped him out a little bit. I don't know, but either way, the second round pick is starting to return value there with some explosiveness out of the backfield. Now, with this O-line, I have my concerns. Spencer Brown's been playing at right tackle. Kessenberry's been banged up. And they want Spencer Brown to be a great player for them. They really do. They tried him out last year. They're doing it again here. He has straight up been a problem in pass protection since the second he came into the league. Third-round pick out of Northern Iowa. One of the freakier athletes you'll see at the position. They understand the upside there with him, and they're trying to be patient with him. So hopefully he can reach it, and only time will tell if that's going to happen. But right now, as this team looks to make a Super Bowl push, I don't think they can trot him out there. So I don't know what other options they have. Maybe it is hopefully getting Kessenberry back healthy at right tackle. But the line play with that and Von Miller going down is becoming a concern for the Buffalo Bills. Ryan Bates has been fine at right guard. They trusted him to fill in there. He's been okay. Still not crazy, but not the problem, like Spencer Brown has been. And then defensively, Ed Oliver, as I mentioned, a 10 pressure performance against the Minnesota Vikings. He's had his ups and downs, as Ed Oliver tends to do. You know, he's just kind of a weird, he's built like Aaron Donald, but he's not Aaron Donald. He doesn't have the strength, the raw core strength that he does. So oftentimes Ed Oliver can be a little bit matchup dependent, sometimes even scheme dependent. But when he can find those lanes and really move around and take advantage of maybe less quick offensive linemen, he's going to dominate. And it's not that he doesn't have power, but really, really good, beefed up, athletic interior offensive linemen. Basically, Ed Oliver's advantage of how quick he is neutralized. So he's going to go up. I'm not trying to talk down on him. I'm just saying he's very inconsistent. But when he flashes, it is so explosive, so incredible. Was the main reason they had any defensive success against the Vikings, as Justin Jefferson was mossing them left and right. But unfortunately, in the secondary, Kyer Elam's going to come down. He's a healthy scratch against New England. He's losing reps. He's had his ups and downs. He's been attacked in coverage, just like he did at Florida. Had a lot of ups and downs. And, it just is not feeling like he's going to be an impact rookie defensive corner like they were hoping to get. And now they're leaning on guys like Dane Jackson and the Villanova rookie who's outplayed him this year in their rookie season. And that's just not what they were hoping to get from him. It's weird that we're having negative conversations about the Bills, but that's really where we're at. Now, DeMar Hamlin on the back end is going to come up. He's been pretty solid in coverage. He's had his issues coming downhill, tackling occasionally, especially in the last few weeks. He's missed a whopping 7 tackles in the last 3 weeks. So it sounds weird that he's going up, but he has been a good fit coverage-wise in this system. And in the long run, I think that will bode well for him. But he does have to clean up these tackles. He was really good weeks 5 through 10 from a tackling perspective, and that was something they coach up really well at Pittsburgh. So you hope he can clean that up, because he's not going to be able to play if he's missing 3.5 tackles every week. But the coverage has been pretty good. And then the kicker, Tyler Bass, has been really solid. He's been a great addition for them ever since they picked him up, right, undrafted, off the street. And, let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. A lot of movement here, a lot of positive movement here. And their star of the month is actually, for me, going to be Connor Williams. I wanted to highlight him because, this is his first year as a center, a really high upside guy. He's slid inside ever since his Texas days. Tackle, into guard for Dallas, and now at center. And if at any position you can get away with shorter arms and having a struggle with power rushers, it is center. Because when you go against the Chris Joneses of the world, the Eric Armsteads of the world, you can help them out with double teams. And I think they've done a good job of doing that. But in general, a wide zone system here. He's been an excellent fit. Just something we talked about, him being a breakout candidate in the Dolphins deep dive. We're seeing that come to fruition. And it's fun to see Connor Williams kind of reach his upside, find what might be his best position, get comfortable at center. Just an all-around great story that I wanted to highlight. But there's a lot of guys rising for this offense as well. So Tua's going to go up 1. Honestly, he's had his ups and downs in this stretch. He lights up some bad defenses for sure, and he's obviously getting credit for that, just continuing the success of everything we've said about him. But I will say it was probably going to be a +2 until that Niners game happened, because that game was ugly. It just was. Too many missed throws. But in general, still being positive about Tua moving up. I do love the decision-making, the decisiveness throughout the course of the season. That accuracy's been really good, but definitely a little bit of eyes perked up from that Niners game. Is he going to finish the season strong after a performance like that? Really getting hit and thrown around a lot in that game too. We know his durability concerns, so we'll see how it goes. But he is going to go up, keep that hot streak alive. And then Jeff Wilson. This was a really sneaky acquisition when they made it. They throw in Chase Edmonds in the Bradley Chubb trade, and then they sneak in Jeff Wilson here. Obviously, someone McDaniel's familiar with, but Jeff Wilson's had his best season in his career. He's a year 4, year 5 guy, undrafted dude, who's shown an ability to have really good vision, break arm tackles, have some really consistent explosiveness. He's just another solid back, a good wide zone fit to come out of this Niners Shanahan system, just like Raheem Mostert. And with Mostert, it's as simple as this: he's healthy. He's a really talented back when healthy. We've seen it in San Francisco, and he's been rotating with Jeff Wilson. Both these guys get the job done. Mostert looks to me like he's traded a little bit of size for speed, and hopefully that means it's going to help him be more durable, because that's what's held him back. He hasn't really shown to me that true, insanely explosive speed there at 30 years old. But I think it's honestly better long-term for him. You don't need that crazy speed. Just, build yourself up a little bit, and you're seeing him be a little bit more of a consistent runner as well. So both backs have been good. Both of these rotational receivers have been good. Trent Sherfield comes in against the Niners as the big touchdown out the gate. He had his flashes in Arizona. He's a really physical blocker. The Niners always loved him. The Dolphins bring him over here, and he's got legit speed. He's got size. I'm not saying he's got a crazy upside or anything, but just, let him run block, let him run deep. That's basically all you need from him. And he's been a nice role player in that position. And then River Crawcraft is just kind of the opposite. Skill-wise, he's been all short to intermediate. He's been a red zone threat. They've snuck him to the outside. Teams, the second you're afraid, this is what makes McDaniel so special. The second you're afraid of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on all these crossing routes, you start to focus your coverage into the middle of the field. Well, that's when McDaniel pulls the trigger on a River Crowcraft corner route or a wheel route from the slot where they can attack that intermediate perimeter of the field. And he's executed. He's been really consistent there week in, week out. It feels like every week he's getting a big-time catch and a big-time moment. Mostly scheme there, but he's executing. Now, Mike Gesicki, we could all see this coming, right? They put him on the trade market, and he just is not a fit. They need blocking tight ends in this Shanahan system. They always have. And Mike Gesicki, I've been trying to tell Dolphins fans for years, they've had it with me for saying he's just a wide receiver, but it's really true. I mean, he doesn't have a blocking bone in his body. He doesn't fit the physical mentality that this offense demands. So I think he's for sure going to be a free agent. I think that's why teams didn't really trade for him. And, he also hasn't been as good as a receiver either, but a big part of that is system. Someone to keep an eye on, would like a Kansas City maybe sneak him in there and groom him to be a Kelsey Kelsey replacement long term, or one of these spread offenses. Maybe Buffalo could be a fit. More shotgun, wide, spread guys out. That's where Gesicki needs to be used as a glorified receiver. Maybe in Las Vegas if they move on from Darren Waller, something like that. But just here, it's not working. And Durham Smythe, believe it or not, has just 10 less snaps than Mike Gesicki this year because he actually blocks. That's why he's going up here. And then talk about blocking, a couple of these guards moving up. So Robert Jones finally getting into the lineup. He's going to get a little bit of respect here. And we actually compared Robert Jones out of Middle Tennessee State to Robert Hunt, a guy that played tackle, a mauling 330-pound dude. You wouldn't expect these guys to come in and be good in a wide zone offense, but I guess they have just enough athleticism and good coaching to make it happen. And both these guys, especially Robert Hunt, pretty good in pass protection, honestly. So a little bit of respect for the interior offensive line this week. And then over to the defense, we're going to give Bradley Chubb a little bit of love here. I'm critical of the trade. I don't think he's the elite edge rusher that they paid for with draft capital and price tag. But it's not that he's a bad player, and he really is having his best year in a while. So he's going to go up pretty good against the Niners and looks good wearing that number 2 for Miami. And Jalen Phillips, man, they might be overpaying Bradley Chubb, but here's one way to look at it. Jalen Phillips is going to be heading into year 3. Phillips looks like he's headed towards being a true number 1 pass rusher, and he had that upside coming out. Really athletic dude, interesting career background for those that remember. Like 4 years ago, he was someone viewed at UCLA as someone that was on a hot track for being a high first-round pick and ended up retiring for head trauma, but comes back to football, goes to the University of Miami, had a great year, ends up being a top 20 pick, the first edge rusher off the board. He is a special athlete with, get off, length, power, pass rush moves, and it's all coming together here, man. He has been dominant. So if you're overpaying Chubb for a couple years to be your number 2, well, you're really underpaying Jalen Phillips on that rookie contract. So you could maybe look at that as a little bit of a trade-off and be okay with it in your mind. But you need Phillips to continue playing like this and be that consistently. And then linebacker Elandon Roberts has been really good for this team's run defense, playing that classic Belichick thumper role as that oversized linebacker. A horrible coverage player. If he has to go any more than 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, you hate what you see. But in that area, he's been good, and you have a guy like Jerome Baker to patrol the sidelines, so he's a good fit here. And then on the back end, couple of, I don't want to say no-name corners, because people that follow the league and have followed this series certainly, I think, are familiar with who Cater Coho and Keon Crossan are at this point. But the majority of NFL fans probably no idea who these guys are. Katie Coho, an undrafted rookie pickup. He's just been a rock-solid, all-around corner for them. He's played some slot. He's played outside. They've been missing Byron Jones and Nick Needham. They needed a guy like this to emerge through the woodworks, and he has out of like Texas A&M Commerce. Man, what a find for Will Grier. Not Will Greer, geez, Chris Greer, and the front office there. And then Keon Crossan, such a fascinating player. He was originally brought into New England as a speedster, kind of their attempt at finding another Jonathan Jones, 7th-round pick, start on special teams, work your way up. Never stuck in New England, but the Houston Texans picked him up and was actually pretty solid for the Texans, up and down, and now getting more opportunities here in Miami. Really athletic guy, so if he's putting things together with his technique and his field awareness, it could be something that, they need these guys to really be something into the playoffs so this defense can help this offense out. And Keon Crossan might have to be that guy if they can't get Jones or Nick Needham back healthy. Next, we have the New England Patriots, whose really defense just continues to wow me how Belichick is throwing all these guys together and putting together a nice top 10-ish defense this year. And a big part of that is Josh Uche's emergence on this defense. An incredible last month of pass rush production. Bill finally using this kid, a weird tweener type coming out of Michigan, but always felt like he was going to fit this scheme perfectly. But here in year 3, finally getting unleashed off the edge, showing incredible bend and ability to get after the quarterback. And Uche on a pretty crazy run. Going back to week 8, he has 20 pressures and 7 sacks in just about 85 pass rush snaps. That just goes to show you how efficient he is. Not a full-time role for Uche, still a part of that rotation as a kind of a third down type of dude. But man, he looks exciting and just kind of the pinnacle of a Belichick type of player in full action at the moment. But let's talk a little bit about the offense before we revisit that defense. Kendrick Bourne going to continue his decline here, just unable to become a part of this offense, and it doesn't seem to be injuries or anything other than the fact that he just isn't very good this year. A big year last year, but struggling to separate, struggling to come down with tough catches, not being a focal point of the offense, really regressing here in New England. Seems to be on his way out of this Patriots team. And then on the offensive line, they have really been shuffling some pieces around. Isaiah Wynn has not been able to stay healthy at right tackle. So a couple starts in this time frame for Yadni Kajust. Did really struggle in pass protection. That's why they eventually went and got this Connor McDermott guy. But Kajust was pretty good in the run blocking, was rated pretty low, so he's going to get a little bit of respect there. But Connor McDermott gets the start week 13 against the Buffalo Bills. And they pick him up from the Jets, and McDermott actually had gotten one start for the Jets in like week 4 and held his own. Holds his own here in week 13 against the Buffalo Bills, going against Gregory Rousseau. McDermott's interesting. Out of UCLA, 6'8", kind of that Nate Solder frame there. I think Solder was also from UCLA, potentially. It could be totally wrong about that. But anyway, someone to keep an eye on there at right tackle. Patriots are pretty good at finding these guys out of nowhere. Not saying it's going to happen with McDermott, but at least got to keep an eye on it. But then on the defense, really just a lot of role players being key parts of this team's success. And Daniel Ekwale has really stepped up this year. He's a 29-year-old vet out of Washington. And not Anthony Jennings, Christian Barmore has been injured here since like week 6. And they've needed someone else to step up. And Ekwale's been a big part of that, and he's been adequate against the run. He's been an adequate rusher. This is nothing crazy here, but rated down at a 62, out of nowhere, he's playing pretty well. And then Anthony Jennings has also been a big part of that rotation. In a large part, he allows Uche to be what he is on third down because Jennings does a lot of the dirty work on early downs, and it makes a lot of sense based on what their draft profiles were. Uche was this twitched up kind of hybrid piece that you could see some pass rush upside on. Jennings was a very just physical, balanced player, someone that was at a point in time viewed as a first-round type of guy, but just never really emerged as a star for Alabama. But man, again, he just makes sense as a part of a rotation. line him up like right off the edge as that kind of weak side Belichick Patriots edge backer, and he plays the run physical. He's got a little bit to get after the passer, but just more of an early down role player, kind of perfect for what he is. And then into the secondary, Marcus Jones really emerging. I am curious to see where this goes moving forward. I would argue that he has taken the slot corner job from Miles Bryant moving forward. They've been toying with him in and out of the lineup as kind of a dime back. And this week, week 13, they did some really good self-scouting. And, Miles Bryant's a fine player, but he's just not an athlete. And we know Marcus Jones is. We've seen him on returns and gets in on offense week 13 against the Bills. But it's much more than that. They got abused by Isaiah McKenzie in both of their last two matchups, specifically from the slot with Miles Bryant trying to cover him. This week, they put Marcus Jones on him and did a spectacular job running with him deep down the field. The Bills tried to do the same stuff, and they weren't able to do it. Marcus Jones has also shown some zone instincts. I went back and listened to what I said about him when he got drafted, and I said that if he was in the body of a Sauce Gardner, he'd probably be my number one corner. He just knows how to play football, whether he's on offense, returning punts, or on defense. He's 5'8". He's got his limitations, but I'm really hoping that the Patriots hand this starting job off to Marcus Jones, and it can really be keeping up with the Joneses here. They have Jonathan Jones back there and Jack Jones, so it's just a little bit of a pump the brakes moment here on cornerback Jack Jones, the rookie who burst onto the scene with a bunch of interceptions. And honestly, the last 3 weeks, he's losing playing time. He's been getting beat quite badly, actually. So still potentially a bright future ahead of him for the 4th round pick, but definitely showing some ups and downs now into this back end of his rookie season. And then in the back end of the defense, Adrian Phillips at 30 years old just keeps getting better, man. His zone IQ in that hook zone area has reached, honestly, an elite level. You watch the All-22 of the Bills game thanks to Amazon Prime, and the way he communicates and passes off zones, he jumps crossing routes. He's just a freaking banshee in the middle of the field. He's not used as a free safety. He's not a full-time starter, but it makes sense. A guy that has played this role now in this defense for 3 years can just dominate that role, coming in on passing downs, patrolling the middle of the field as a bit of a hybrid safety linebacker piece, an underrated piece for sure. But Kyle Duggar, the full-time starter, having an excellent season, a much more consistent year as a tackler, using that big size, that big frame to play down in the box on all 3 downs, but showing some range and decent coverage ability as well. Kyle Duggar, a really talented safety ascending here. Before we get to our next team, I want to let you guys know we've got some really exciting merch here, trying to dodge my mic so you can see it. This is the Size Matters Not merch, a concept I've been working on, trying to get to you guys for a while. It is on thatfranchisestore.com. That's really all I have to say. You can get any TFG merch there as well. But this shirt, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, it's all available. You'll support my channel. You'll rep my brand. Check it out at thatfranchisestore.com. And now we wrap up the AFC East with the New York Jets, and Garrett Wilson, rookie wide receiver, is going to be their star of the month. It's pretty crazy what he's doing in any game, basically, that Zach Wilson doesn't start. I mean, he is on a hot track towards being one of those true alpha number 1 wide receivers. My Stephon Diggs comps for him in the draft really showing through. You can just see the ability, like the way he moves is just different. He can get from one spot to another with a juke move or a cut in his routes and just shake guys in a way that you just don't see. He's got consistent hands. He tracks the ball well. He has plenty of speed. I just love Garrett Wilson, man. He has burst onto the scene, and it's so fun to see the Jets run their offense through them. When the Jets drafted him, I love the fit theoretically, but it has felt like they haven't necessarily gotten all these theoretically great prospects to reach their potential, and they're really doing that with Garrett Wilson, which is just so awesome to see. So add him to the list of incredible rookie wide receivers who have come into the league and dominate, and going up plus 379 to an 82 this week. Now, unfortunately, Zach Wilson's going to have to come down. And I really don't have to explain this. We've had shorts, we've had podcasts, we've had power rankings, all talking about how unfortunate it is that everything else is working, and that really leaves no excuses for Zach Wilson. And you see Mike White going up plus 4 here. The fact that a guy like him is stepping in and this offense looks better with a 5th-round pick from the Cowboys that they picked up off the street is dramatically outplaying him. So there's your quarterback room for the Jets. It's pretty self-explanatory and well documented, but you can see the ratings changes there. And then for the running back room, a lot of movement here as well. So Ty Johnson's going to come up after a huge game against the Chicago Bears, a couple of really impressive runs showing some ability to make guys miss and put that explosiveness that he does have to use. Now, James Robinson, on the other hand, his stock is falling off the face of the earth. The Jags trade him away really for nothing. And I just hope James Robinson can get healthy. It doesn't feel like he is right now. He's coming off the injury. And one thing with James Robinson that's always stood out when he burst onto the scene, quite literally, in his undrafted rookie season for the Jags, was he had an incredible first step. That acceleration through the hole was just different with him. And it's not like he has crazy long speed, but when you can clear into the second level as fast as he was able to do in that rookie season, that set him apart. And we're not seeing that same initial step burst right now. And when you take that away, what is James Robinson, right? Is he just a fine backup? That is kind of what it feels like right now. So unfortunately, he's going to go down, and we'll continue to monitor if he can get back to what he was or if this is who he is now. And then Zonovan Knight comes in and looks awesome. Zonovan Knight was a early declaree out of NC State, and a fun, just kind of bruising style, but was a little bit smaller for a guy who doesn't have incredible top speed. You know, if you want a power back, you usually want him to be 220 plus, 5'11", 6 foot. You know, he's, I think, 5'11", 210, so a little bit on the smaller side, but he is physical. He's got vision. He gets the job done back-to-back weeks, really making a name for himself as an undrafted back. And it's quite ironic to see, you know, James Robinson struggling while Zonovan Knight excels, a couple of undrafted backs. But then the offensive line, this is one of the better things the Jets have had going for them in the last couple of weeks. Most notably, Dwayne Brown at 37 years old, continuing to do it. He's been a rock at left tackle, which is just crazy. We keep seeing these linemen playing deep into their 30s, and Dwayne Brown, another one. You know, when the Texans traded him away to the Seahawks like 5 years ago at 32 years old, I don't think they ever saw this coming. He still has it. What a pickup he's been after they lost Mekhi Becton for the season. And another great pickup, Nate Herbig. I'm not going to say the Eagles are kicking themselves for letting him go because they're so deep on that offensive line. But, man, the Jets picked him up in a hurry, and he has been a rock at right guard. That he really has not missed a beat since Vera Tucker went down. And you could argue Herbig's been just about as good, not quite in the run blocking department, but as a pass protector, it's been pretty damn close. Haven't missed much there at all. Laken Tomlinson at left guard also starting to settle in much better here for the Jets, especially from a pass protection point of view. And then Connor McGovern has quietly had an incredible season at center as well. He really popped for me when I was doing that Jets deep dive in the summer. Just his get off and how well he fit this wide zone system last season. Was a great run blocker, and he continues to get only better there from the center position, but he has continued to refine his technique and settled in at center in pass protection, and surely having better guys around him has helped as well. But yeah, Connor McGovern is rising towards being a top 10 or so center. Which is huge for the Jets. This O-line really coming together. And George Fant started at right tackle. Wasn't pretty, but if they can plug him in at right tackle, this could quietly be a very good offensive line with some incredible playmakers here, some backs. This Jets team, Joe Douglas, just such a such a master class he's done filling out this roster. And then some pieces on the defense on the move. It's been kind of continued success of a lot of the guys we've talked about, but Quinnen Williams just continues to impress in his all-around game. His best season as a pass rusher, his best season as a run defender. He's reached that blue chip potential and only going up here this season. And then on the edge, Michael Clemens, he's like out snapping Jermaine Johnson because of what he can do on early downs. Michael Clemens has legit been one of the best run defending edge players in the league. That was the bill on him coming out of Texas A&M. Just so physical up front and big, 270 pounds, gets the job done. And yeah, he's getting credit for it here. And then Quincy Williams playing behind those guys up front is flying around. He's still a little bit streaky. He's a risk taker, but he certainly flashes every couple weeks and continues to impress at linebacker there. And then in the slot, Michael Carter has started his ascension as one of these premier, just solid physical slot corners, smart guy out of Duke, and he's had a great season there. Just, he's had some plays in coverage. He's really come up and fit the run well. The perfect fit to be this team's K'Wan Williams in this Niners scheme that they have. And then the special teams playing well too. Greg Zuerlein, Greg the Leg, looks a little bit more like his former self. Huge game against the Minnesota Vikings, making his kicks and has had a good year overall. So once viewed as one of the best kickers in the league, heading back towards that a little bit after falling off for a couple years. And now we head to the AFC South. The Indianapolis Colts have a star of the month on the offensive line. And if I told you that in September, you'd be very happy if you were a Colts fan, especially if I told you that player was Bernhard Raimann. The Colts put a lot of pressure on either Raimann or the left tackle Matt Pryor here to really stand out as a starting caliber left tackle. And up until about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it was looking like a colossal failure. However, Bernhard Raimann, the third-round pick, 24-year-old rookie coming out of Central Michigan, an interesting career path, a guy that has not played a lot of football. So comes into the NFL and really looked bad at guard, at tackle. Didn't seem like the speed of the game had caught up with him, or he had caught up to the speed of the game, rather. But these last 4 or 5 weeks has been mostly locked down at left tackle. That includes a lot of actually good reps against Micah Parsons. He's shown that he is a good run blocker, and things are trending back up for the young rookie. And for the Colts, if you walk out of this year feeling like you have a potential franchise left tackle from the third round, a guy that many people flirted with Raimann as a potential first-round prospect, well, then it's not all bad for this offensive line this year. Then we got to talk about some of these playmakers, especially at tight end here. So Jelani Woods becoming a bigger and bigger part of the offense, especially if you look at that game against the Steelers, just funneling targets his way. They just ran the offense through him, and he showed he could handle it. Been an up and down year for Woods, but the freak athlete, 6'7", a third-round pick this year himself. He is a special player, or at least a special prospect, and that's also exciting to see him start to reach some of that upside. Kylan Granson as well, a really athletic kind of, I don't want to say a tweener tight end, but he's one of those wing players. Not a full-sized guy, not the best blocker in the world, but they got him going in the passing game in the last few weeks. And that has come at the cost of Mo Alley-Cox, and it's not just opportunity. Mo Alley-Cox just hasn't been able to come down with as many contested catches, and most notably, his blocking has really been an issue. Not necessarily an issue, but he has been far from great at it. We've seen this Colts run game suffer, and he's been a part of that, so he's going to come down one. Then we move over to the defense that has been kind of a pleasant surprise. If you really watch them the last few weeks, they've been sneaky competitive. Even in that Dallas game, things opened up in the fourth quarter, but they were within 2 points heading into that fourth quarter, believe it or not, based on that final score. But Grover Stewart's been a freaking monster this year. We got to give him some respect. We give DJ Reader all the praise in the world for being one of the best, if not the best, run-defending nose tackles in the league. Well, Grover's right there with him. He's a truly special player, a space eater up in the middle of the field. And then Dayo Odeyingbo, second-round pick last year, maybe 2 years ago. I think it would have been last year. Yeah. Dayo missed most of his rookie season for injury, but really since he's been playing in a bit of a rotational role, He's shown that he can use that size and get off and length to really create havoc for this Colts defense. So he's gotten some more opportunities lately. Kwity Paye's been kind of banged up in and out of the lineup. And Dio's been a decent pass rusher. He's actually got a better win rate than Kwity Paye, and he's made an impact in run defense as well. So I wasn't a huge fan of this pick. I saw the physical traits, and the coaching here seemed to be getting that out of him. And he's also a great fit in Gus Bradley's four-man front, where they love to run stunts. So we're seeing him succeed there. Then we get to the second level. These linebackers having to step up this year with Shaq Leonard now out for the year, and they've played all right. You know, Zaire Franklin's been far from a superstar, but he's getting lots of reps. Fourth year for him, first opportunity to be a full-time starter. He's been a captain on special teams, and he's been fine. You know, I think he's shown that he can hold up as a kind of replacement level starter. And then EJ Speed, just a fascinating player, just kind of a flash player, continuing to splash, just a really fast run and chase linebacker. They bring him in base packages, quote unquote base. He gets 10, 15 snaps a game, continues to make an impact on special teams, and he's a fascinating player that hasn't really gotten an opportunity, but it makes you wonder what might come of it if he did get a nod to start a little bit. Then into the secondary, man, Stephon Gilmore has I'll say it, he's back at 31 years old. He's got the juice, the acceleration, the closing speed, the best man technique in the NFL probably. He's been heady in zone, in cover three here for Gus Bradley's defense. It's really been a match made in heaven. They've struggled to hit at cornerback, but between signing him and what they have in Isaiah Rodgers, that may be changing here for that narrative on the GM here, Chris Ballard. But Isaiah Rodgers, they keep rotating him with Brandon Faison, who's just so whatever. Isaiah Rodgers has been just rock solid. He gets like 30 snaps a game. He can play on the outside. I think he can play in the slot. He's tackling well this year. I just don't get what their hesitation is with him. You got to question Gus Bradley on that one, because don't you want to know if this young, ultra-fast, athletic corner that only plays well when you give him opportunities, don't you want to know if he can be a star corner and hold up as a full-time starter? I don't get what the hesitation is at this point. What are you wasting time with Brandon Faison? If I were a Colts fan, I'd be pretty furious at this point. But you like what you see in the 30 snaps a game that he gets. And then these safeties are actually playing really well, and they're not the names you would have predicted to play well back there. You would have thought Nick Cross, Julian Blackmon. Nope, it's been Rodney McLeod, and as of the Dallas game, Rodney Thomas, the Rodneys on the back end, both playing well. Rodney McLeod at 32 years old, showing that he still has it. You know, McLeod has always been a very secure, cover-free safety. He's doing that here and holding up as a 32-year-old veteran, making some plays on balls back there. And then Rodney Thomas, very fascinating. I want to say he's a 7th-round pick out of Yale. 6'2", 195 pounds, not a bad athlete, and you know he's smart coming out of Yale, so definitely someone to keep an eye on. He made a couple really nice plays in coverage in that Dallas game. They targeted him down the field, and he was in great position. He's been playing a lot this year, had to start in that Dallas game, and mostly has been pretty secure coming downhill tackling. Now, a big part of that Dallas comeback was Rodney Thomas missing tackles and taking bad angles. So there's some learning experience to be had there for sure. But it does seem like they've found an interesting player there. And I would even go as far as saying someone to compete with Julian Blackmon, who continues to just be fine, but not really break through as a star safety back there. Rodney Thomas showing that you might have some replacement potential there. And then the kicker, Chase McLaughlin, just continues to be incredibly accurate. He's missed some deep kicks, but for the most part, all season long, he has filled in for Blankenship and been a great replacement there. So there's your Colts. And now for the Jacksonville Jaguars, their star of the month. Not a ton of players like completely shining through from the last 4 weeks of football, but we got to give the nod to Trevor Lawrence, the comeback win against the Baltimore Ravens. And after last month's episode, we lowered him one. It was stock down for Trevor Lawrence. It is stock back up. The arm talent on display, the ability to make high-level NFL reads, the accuracy, especially targeting kind of deep and towards the sideline, really gets you excited for them to get a guy like Calvin Ridley, because they just don't have that in their offense right now to get the ball in that area where he's always been so good throwing to that part of the field, going back to his time at Clemson. So stock back up for Trevor Lawrence. That's one of the few things that matters for the Jags for the rest of the year, is making sure he continues to trend upwards. And then some more offensive players. JaMycal Hasty, one of my draft darlings as a day 3 option, goes to the Niners, buried behind that deep running back room, and finds his way over here to San Francisco and gets an opportunity now with James Robinson out. And even ETN, I think, was banged up, giving JaMycal Hasty a start in there, and totally handled his business, at least in the receiving game. Not a whole lot of space for him to go in the run game, but I think it was 5 receptions, 65 yards, and a touchdown against the Ravens in that starting opportunity, showing some smooth hands and acceleration upfield out of the backfield. He's a nice backup, change of pace back to have. Christian Kirk has resumed his dominant production, just very smooth, easy production out of the slot. Not to knock him, he's not a vertical ball winner. That's why they brought in a Ridley. But, man, his route running, his separation ability, just so consistent in that part of the field. And kind of like I said on the GM show this week, I would hate to see what this offense looked like without him this year. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's got 100 yards for Trevor and the squad here. Then on the offensive line, Tyler Shatley continues to be a pleasant veteran surprise, stepping in at left guard with Barch out and just playing very reliable, sound left guard play. They've got something there. And then Luke Fortner has been pretty damn good as well. Well, okay, let me take that back, walk that back a little bit. He's been solid for a rookie center, which for a third-round guy plugging in there, this is about as good as you can hope for. You just hope he continues to refine things and get better. Did struggle in pass protection against that Ravens front, but for the most part has done a pretty good job up there and continues to inch forward. Then we go over to the defensive side of the ball, and it's time to ding Faloranzu Fatukasi. Now, he's been injured, he's missed some time, but he's been back into the lineup, and simply put, they are just not getting the dominant enforcer up front that they thought they were paying for in free agency. His defensive stops are way down. He's getting moved off the ball. He's missing more tackles than he's missed when he gets those opportunities. So hoping one of my favorites in the league can turn things around, get more comfortable here in Jacksonville, but the Jets did let him go, and perhaps a scheme change into more of a 3-4 front, him having to see a little bit more attention up front, not having a guy like Quinnen Williams next to him is hurting him a little bit. But on the bright side, Devon Hamilton out of Ohio State is really trending up. We kind of knew he would eventually probably become a good run defender, just as some of these good mid-round D tackles take. But a pleasant surprise from him has been the pass rush production. Not that he's been dominating, but he's been applying some pressure. He's got a couple sacks, and he looks like a nice kind of starter. You just hope Fatukasi can be what they're paying him to be, and you got a nice 1-2 punch there. Adam Gotsis as well deserves a little bit of credit. 29-year-old veteran, freaky, lengthy, like 6'8" dude. Once upon a time out of Georgia Tech. And they're using him in a role that makes sense on this front. William Golston, kind of that tweener type for the Bucs. This defensive coordinator comes from that system. They're using him to kind of set the edge, push that C gap inwards, sometimes the B gap as well, and just doing a really good job at what he's asked to do, so deserves a little flowers here. And then Trayvon Walker, we got to have a little conversation about him. It's just the inefficiency as a pass rusher. It goes back to what we said about him at Georgia. Just doesn't really know what he's doing out there. And even if there's flashes, this is not what you want out of the former number 1 overall pick. He gets really just deleted by Patrick McCarry in that Ravens game. And here's a little bit more context. Just hear me out here. You go to all of the players in the top 10 for pass rush snaps in the league, and Trayvon Walker is 9th. This is not a lack of opportunities. And I'm just going to read off the amount of pressures that every player above him has. And the one player behind him has 41. So Here we go. 53, 47, 37, 38, 38, 63, 53, 40. All good numbers from those guys. All guys grading at least above average per PFF. Only one player has less than 7 sacks from that list. That is Chandler Jones, who only has 3 sacks with 38 pressures. So then you get to Trayvon Walker, right with those guys. 28 pressures, just 28 pressures, a really abysmal pass rush productivity right there, and only 3 sacks. And he doesn't have a sack in the last month either. So we've been critical of this pick. I think Jags fans are seeing now with guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, outperforming Walker, why there was skepticism about this draft pick, and there's still plenty of time for his athleticism to shine through and for him to become that number 1 overall guy, but it is just not really where you want to see for a number 1 pick, and that's what we said all along, and it's coming to fruition. Then we also got to talk about the other first-round pick here, Devin Lloyd. So he went down 1 in last episode and just kind of starting to talk about how bad the coverage had been. And I was sort of saying, I feel like this is going to turn around. He's a young player, yada, yada. He had such a great start, both in coverage and in general, looked like a superstar. But my goodness, how the turntables with Devin Lloyd. He has been benched. He has been really abused in coverage for 8+ weeks. Chad Muma has taken his starting job, and those missed tackles that were an issue for him at Utah, well, they weren't an issue for him in the first month, and that looked optimistic, but they have returned. He's been missing a lot more tackles. Stock way down for Devin Lloyd, and you just hate to see it. But at least Chad Muma is stepping up, and there's a reason they benched Lloyd is because they like what they see in Chad Muma. So Muma's going to go up 3. He's been an incredible run defender up front, run and chase. He's seen kind of similar struggles in coverage as well, but I think he moves a little bit better in space, and obviously they like where he's at more than Devin Lloyd. So definitely something to monitor there. Ideally, both these guys become the linebackers of your future, but Foyesade Oluokun has been balling out, and this is why we were so critical of the Devin Lloyd selection, or at least why both? Why you got to take both these guys? Take either Lloyd or Muma after you sign Foye Oluokun. Just why you got to invest that much at linebacker? And Oluokun's been a hit for them in free agency. He's been one of the better run and chase tacklers in the league. He's been thumping at a really high level the last couple weeks, was a big part of that defensive effort against the Ravens, just getting nasty in the trenches. He has put on some weight. He played at about 215, 220 in Atlanta. He's playing about 10 pounds heavier than that right now, and it's showing. So Foye Oluokun was paid to be one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and he's playing to match that. And then in the secondary, Tyson Campbell continues to just be a playmaker at cornerback. He's had his ups and downs. He's given up, I think, 4 touchdowns. He's given up some big plays, but he's made big plays as well. And he's going to continue his ascension, a guy that was basically a first-round pick for the Jags last year. And then Darius Williams. Man, the free agency, the deep dive narrative on this defense could not have played out much better than what I projected. It shows, sometimes I do know what I'm talking about. I was really critical of this Darius Williams signing, not because I don't like Darius Williams. Those that have followed this series have heard me rave about Darius Williams as an off-zone, quarters-heavy, zone-heavy, eyes to the quarterback, perimeter cornerback, one of the headier zone corners in the league right here. But the Jags signed him, a 5'9", undersized corner who, when he played in the slot, legitimately struggled. I think 7th round pick about 5 years ago, ended up moving to the outside where he finally earned an opportunity to be a good player and eventually that big contract. But a horrible foresight by the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can't just say, this guy produced, this is his market value, we need to pay him because we need another corner. You can't just do that. You need to look at the player. You need to evaluate scheme fit, how they're going to be used. And in both situations, Darius Williams, it's been a complete failure. Number one, he's been playing primarily from the slot, where he's been abused, having to come into his run fits. He's missed tackles, but also having to play bump and run coverage, having to cover bigger bodied tight ends, shiftier slot receivers. playing with his back turned to the quarterback a lot more. It's just not his game. And it was just all around very questionable. I said, give him a chance because he's a quick, smart player. But this has been pretty much a colossal failure, signing Darius Williams and essentially playing out of position. So he's going to come down too. The thing is, I know he can still play, and he's a guy that maybe they release him and he goes back to the Rams or something like that. And I could see him turning it back around very quickly because I feel like this is more of a scheme fit thing. But at the same time, as long as he's here in Jacksonville, he's not playing up to what we had him rated as, so he's got to come down. Then Andre Cisco, the safety, picks off Patrick Mahomes, has given up some plays in coverage, but he's been a good tackler coming downhill. So young player, you're gonna make some mistakes, but the flashes are there. I think the future is bright for Cisco. And then just one player who didn't change that we had notes on, Zay Jones. I mean, the Ravens game was awesome. Looked like he was ready to emerge as a legitimate number 2 wide receiver for this team. And then dropped the ball literally 3 times against the Lions. And without those drops, I think that game is a hell of a lot closer than the box score would tell you. Those were big time, big situational drops by Zay Jones that hurt the team. So not quite ready to bump him up. All right, then we got the Houston Texans. Hard to find a star of the month for this squad, but got to shout out Laramie Tunsil, man. In a wasted season for Houston, a year where he could have asked out, he could have thrown a fit, said, I don't want to waste my prime on this team. He's just showing in, week out with his lunch pail, going to work, and making a claim to be the best pass-protecting left tackle in the entire NFL. Highlighted by that game against the Browns, really handling Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney their own, and just, man, like I said, just taking care of business. Laramie Tunsil, one of the best in the business. For a guy that fell in the draft for a gas mask, potential character concerns, this guy has been an elite character guy in the NFL really since the second he arrived. And then Davis Mills is going to come down. He gets benched at a couple ugly weeks in a row, and he's entering the backup stages of his career. Still, I think, a decent backup. Probably a pretty long career ahead of him, honestly. He is still so young, and he has all the tools to be a good backup, but that's probably about it. Then we got Nico Collins. Talk about showing up week in, week out with your lunch pail. He's been kind of their go-to guy, incredibly consistent hands. I probably just jinxed him into some drops moving forward, but year 2 wide receiver, someone that I think they feel pretty good to be their perimeter Y receiver in the future with Bryce Young here. And then I got a laugh out of this, seeing Jordan Akins back here. Felt like they were finally kind of cleansing themselves from that collection of third-round tight ends that the Texans have tried to hit on. And nope, no one works out here. O.J. Howard, Brevin Jordan, nowhere to be found. They say, all right, Jordan, come on back. And he starts catching balls right away. He's actually looked pretty good. And that's probably the extent of the excitement on Jordan Akins, but I guess we'll see. So anyone can turn a corner at any given moment, I suppose. He's a decent athlete with some physicality. Then the interior of the offensive line has been really tough to watch. I will say Kenyon Green had his best game last week against the Browns, but that is against a putrid Browns interior defensive line. For the most part, Kenyon Green's been a turnstile in pass protection. He hasn't been paving ways in the run game in the ways they expected from him either. So you hope he can turn things around as he heads into year 2, but right now, he's the one getting turned around, as is A.J. Cann there on the right side, 30 years old, coming off a serious injury in Jacksonville, and just doesn't really seem to have it at a high level anymore. He's had some decent games. I don't think he's completely washed, but definitely not that quality starting right guard that he was in Jacksonville for a few years. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this is all I've been asking for, right? Like, I just can't watch Christian Kirksey and Kamu Kruger-Hill fly around the field at 30 years old anymore. Get some youth in the building. See if you can find any building blocks for the future. And Jake Hansen the last 3 weeks has been rotating in here in this linebacker room. A limited athlete. It's why he fell undrafted at 24 years old. But he is a Lovie Smith guy, played in Lovie's defense at Illinois. He gets brought in here and honestly looks the part. He's been the first to the ball. He's been getting off blocks. He's been a secure tackler. And this is what I'm talking about. Get some youth in the building. Christian Harris has been playing as well. He's been up and down, to say the least, but it's better than Christian Kirksey and Kamu Kruger-Hill continuing to play. And then on the edge, Agbanya Okoronkwo, someone I said to keep an eye out for, just with a ton of bend and juice off the edge. They found a lot of success from Jacob Martin in this role last year, and Agbanya Okoronkwo totally fits that role. You're seeing a similar kind of success level from what they got from Martin last year. He's 27 years old, could be someone they view as a piece, maybe a third edge guy, a nickel rush package guy for sure. He's shown that he can definitely play. And then the kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, just been incredibly consistent this year after a rough year last year. And I got to talk about Jalen Petrie starting to play much better after the middle of his rookie season was pretty rough. And good to see him kind of solidifying some good coverage reps on the back end and playing a little bit better as far as tackling and all of the hats he has to wear in this defense. They spent a good second-round pick on him. Got high expectations for him. He's starting to play like it. Good to see. And then rounding out the AFC South, we have the Tennessee Titans. Star of the month was a tough one here. Just a bunch of different players who have had good, not like unbelievably crazy months. But I think the best of the group there would be David Long, linebacker standout, who Titans fans have been trying to scream David Long's name from the rooftop for a long time, and I think this was the best, most consistent stretch of football he's played. You can just tell this guy plays with his hair on fire, and he is on fire here in Studs and Duds. The second episode in a row, he's going up. The run defense, the pursuit, the tackling, you can, like I said, he just pops. When you watch the Titans play, he flies around, he makes plays, and he's still developing and getting better and better, balancing his all-around game, and they seem to have found a borderline star linebacker in the middle rounds. Crazy, I know, a linebacker in the mid-rounds, turning into a really good player. My theory of don't draft linebackers high just continues and continues and continues. But let's visit this offense for a little bit. It's been an up and down month. Some pretty good performances though, but man, Robert Woods just has not been able to get it back, and I don't know if that's coming this year or ever. He will be 31 next season, coming off that ACL injury last year, and yeah, he's just not separating at a high level. He just has not been much of an impact player at all. He's been relatively reliable when they do throw him the ball, but he just doesn't have that same juice. Already not a crazy good athlete before that, so it can be tough when a marginal athlete, or at least if an average athlete becomes a marginal athlete, there's only so many ways you can win there. But Treylon Burks is flipping that the other way. The last 3 weeks, Burks has been healthy and gotten out there, and my God, he just looks special in what is already shaping up to be a good wide receiver class. Burks is adding on top of that, and right out the gate, honestly, doing something that we saw just flashes of at Arkansas, but not necessarily consistently, and that is winning deep down the field with ability to stack corners, track deep balls. It was definitely in there in Arkansas, at Arkansas, and great to see that it's in there for Burks. Honestly, what we haven't seen fully unleashed is the Deebo Samuel stuff that we talked about him. Get the ball in his hands, jet sweeps, and pop passes, screens, you name it, different ways to get him the ball. I think they're just getting started here with Treylon Burks. He looks awesome after a rough start with a kind of a slow training camp. A lot of reports, credit to Titans beat reporters, were saying, Burks might be a little bit slow out the gate for one reason or another. That held up. But now that he's out there, he's healthy, he's fresh, he's in shape. Let's get the ball rolling on the Treylon Burks train. And such a weird time to fire John Robinson, too, over the A.J. Brown thing. Because, I get it. It sucks. But, Burks looks pretty good. He doesn't, maybe not A.J. Brown, but, man, they seem to be right in thinking that he was a good player. But Nick Westbrook-Akine is going to go up again, just kind of steadily rising. Nice role player. That Week 10 game, what was that, the Denver game? Am I making that up? I think it was Denver. Had a bunch of really impressive catches, coming down with stuff in traffic. And, yeah, he's just a reliable third piece. He's this team's, Ben Skoranek, Alan Lazard. Man, what a comeback from Baker tonight, by the way. Just throwing that in. Whew, that'll be fun to talk about. But the tight ends, Chig Okonkwo, one of our draft darlings on this channel, he's the guy they've honestly been finding ways to get him the ball. We talked about Traylon Burks, maybe not so much, but he gets a jet sweep in there. They run him on out routes, corner routes. He's just a total jack of all trades back there. Really good athlete. Big fan of Chig. You guys have heard me talk a lot about him if you've been around the channel, so it's fun to see him do all the things that we talked about him being able to do here in this wide zone, play-action heavy offense. And then Austin Hooper, honestly, on one of his best stretches of football in a long time, just kind of flamed out in Cleveland, was kind of just bland, whatever, tight end. But Tannehill has grown some trust with his new tight end here, and rightfully so. Austin Hooper is making some really tough catches and becoming a part of this passing game that is looking like a nice addition to the offense. And then on the offensive line, some movement. Dennis Daly, he has been nothing special, but they continue to go with him at left tackle. He continues to get experience. Far from great there, but he's held up, adequately for a backup, I will just say. Then Nate Davis at right guard. His breakout continues in pass protection. That was something that he's always struggled with and seems to have really taken that to heart and refined his technique, and he looks like he's going to be due for a big contract coming up, an ascending guard in this league that's been starting a long time here for Tennessee, and it's fun to see the development come along for him. And then interesting at left guard, Dylan Raduns or Dylan Radins. Titans fans, let me know in the comments down below how that's pronounced. I guess I should know because he's a recent draft pick, but yeah, we'll go with Radins. I think that's what it is. It was a second-round pick last year and kind of busted in his first year, viewed as a tackle coming out of North Dakota State. And here in year two, they've actually been playing him quite a bit at guard. And it was, I believe, weeks 11 and 12. He played really well at left guard, having to hold up against some good interior defensive linemen, guys like Kenny Clark against the Packers. And strangely enough, with Brett Jones returning from injury, they go back to, his name's escaping me. I want to say Chandler Brewer. That could be wrong. The left guard that's like 285 pounds, who they obviously like because of his run block ability and the scheme fit, and I get that. But Dylan Radins, you spent this high draft pick on him. He shows success at guard. They pull him out week 13, and you got to question that, in my opinion. Let him roll. He's the guy with the upside there, not your 280-pound toy at left guard. But let's move on to the defense, where we got some stuff to talk about. We already did David Long earlier, but I want to talk about Monty Rice, who's another one of my draft darlings. Just an instinctive, kind of undersized, fun linebacker. I really liked it when the Titans grabbed him. They've had a really deep rotation ahead of him. He hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities, but they've had just a million injuries, guys in and out of the lineup, street free agents in and out of the lineup. And Monty Rice has gotten some opportunities to rotate in there, see what he can do. And he's just flashed in different areas, a little bit in coverage, a little bit in run defense, just some heady plays. And you're seeing some of the inconsistency there that comes with being a little bit smaller, but just someone to keep an eye on. I have him rated nicely because he's one of my dudes, but someone to keep an eye on there. I also want to mention Elijah Molden has gotten back healthy for the first time this year. He's been brought back into the mix in the slot and looked pretty good here in year two, so could be something to keep an eye on there. And then Roger McCreary, I didn't do anything about it here after we raised him in the last episode, right? Yes, Roger McCreary went up in the last episode. Not going to take those 2 overall points we gave him away quite yet because it's only a few games, and I like Roger McCreary, but it has not been a good stretch. Teams have really been going after him pretty consistently. He seems to be giving up 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60, 70 yards a game. That's a little bit too much for my liking for a starting corner, so we'll have to see if he can bunker down here for the home stretch or if he's hitting a little bit of a wall here. But some other players, we got to talk about. Trey Avery. Total classic Mike Vrabel out of nowhere. Where the hell did they find this guy? He's been rotating in and around at corner. And man, he's making plays for this team. He's been breaking up passes, and I had to do a little bit of research into him. He's a 25-year-old undrafted rookie out of Rutgers. He is a decent athlete. He's a little smaller, 5'11", 180 pounds, but tested really well. 4.45 40. He's got good agility scores. I think he had like a 38-inch vert. So, never know with these guys, can be late bloomers, especially at a school like Rutgers. See if he keeps getting opportunities and if he has a little more upside here. But a fun player to keep an eye on at least. So we had to create him. He was not on our roster. And then at safety, a couple of under-the-radar guys here too. That's really what this defense is made up of. And it's Andrew Adams continuing to start and just play pretty well. He's a journeyman veteran. He's been in the Giants, the Bucks. He's never really been bad anywhere he's been. So they've trusted him. He's been fully starting. But, with some of these guys getting back healthy, we'll see if he retains that job. But if nothing else, he's good depth. Likewise with Joshua Kalu, he's been playing a little bit of a role as a strong safety, but he gets the start against the Green Bay Packers, and he's gotten several starts this year. He's like a year 4 player out of Nebraska. And he's just, it makes sense he's stuck around here because he's been around Tennessee. Because he's just really fast to the ball. He's a secure tackler for the most part. I can't confirm this, but I can only imagine he's played a lot of special teams and earned the respect of this staff to get a part of this rotation. So we're going to give him a little bit of respect here, all the way up to a 66. Okay, we are on to our final division, the AFC West, starting with the Denver Broncos, who continue to just not be able to buy a win. But the star of the month coming from the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be Alex Singleton, who you just got to respect it. He is far from the fastest linebacker out there and never going to be an LB1, and maybe this team wishes they had one, but Singleton plays every single snap as if it's his last. He's been bounced around the league on several teams, but everywhere he's played, he's given it his all. And here in Denver, we're seeing a system that's really working for him. It's that Fangio system that lets these linebackers keep everything in front of them, the same system that a guy like Devondre Campbell turned his career around under. And, man, he is just nailing dudes, flying around the line of scrimmage and shedding blocks, reading out plays. He's been one of the best run-defending linebackers in the league this year. The Broncos have been a tough team to run on, and Singleton's a big part of that. But let's talk about the offense a little bit. I know it's tough to talk about this offense sometimes. I will say, man, Russ has not been that bad to watch the last 3 weeks. It's felt, at least recently, more about receivers not making plays, the play calling not working, than it has been with Russ truly sucking. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Latavius Murray's been pretty good. He's 31 years old. I don't know how long he'll keep this up for, but still has some juice in the tank, so he's going to go up a little bit. Then we got the rookie tight end, Greg Dulcich, who ever since he came back from injury has really been fully acclimated to be this team's number 1 tight end. Has had some explosive plays, showing off the speed and mismatch ability that he did at UCLA. Now, the run blocking, we said it coming out. This dude is one of the worst run blocking tight end prospects you'll ever see, and he's a problem when they ask him to block. That's why they bring in some of these other guys. But as far as being a receiving threat, Dulcich has been that. He continues to rise. Now, Kelvin Anderson, I thought about him for Star of the Month as well. He's a fascinating player. 6'5", smooth athlete out of Texas. Ends up going undrafted. He's hung around here in Denver. I think he's been on and off the practice squad. He's gotten some starts from last year, but he really does look the part. And I remember like 5 years ago, him being one of those like prospect watch guys for, I don't know about first round, but certainly draftable, right? I think he was a highly recruited player at Texas, but for whatever reason, and maybe someone in the chat can, in the comments below, can fill us in on maybe what happened there, but he definitely looks over the last 2 years like a potential starting caliber tackle. So he's been filling in at left tackle for Garrett Bowles, doing a great job. They really haven't missed much of a beat there. And we'll see where this goes. I mean, there's not a clear opportunity for him. I don't know if he can flip over to the right side if and when Bowles gets back. But the guy's got length, he's got foot speed, he's got technique, he's a really good pass protector. Definitely not the strongest guy, so maybe you worry about handling power rush, and certainly as a run blocker, not a strength for him. But there's something there with Calvin Anderson. And then we got Quinn Miners coming back from injury and playing pissed off that he got hurt. He's been mauling dudes, playing some of his best football in his young career here over the last 3 weeks. I love Quinn Miners. It's been good to see him continue to rise. He really has remarkable upside, so hopefully he can stay healthy and continue to climb. Then we get to the defensive side of things. A couple of rotational players up front really contributing at an underrated clip to this run defense. Matt Henningsen out of Wisconsin, playing a little bit of that 4-eye, 3-tech stuff. Just helping setting tone there on the edge and rotating in and out. Decent kind of tweener type that they found this year in the late portion of the draft. I think 6th or 7th round, maybe 5th. But then Jonathan Cooper. He's probably been their best edge player, honestly, the last 3 weeks or so, because Benito hasn't given him much. I don't want to say that Baron Browning has fallen off, but he hasn't been that same impact. Jonathan Cooper has been really setting the tone up front in run defense, especially. Now, they do take him off on those earlier downs. He's just not the most twitched up, most polished pass rusher. But you think of some of the guys that have come through this system, these do-it-all outside backer types. Jonathan Cooper is right there with all those guys like Malik Reed, how they used Shaq Barrett when he was here, and he's just a good, balanced player that you got to respect. And then the other linebacker here, Josey Jewell, he's playing some of his most physical football in his career. I've always admired Josey Jewell's game. He's one of those linebackers that you just, when you watch him, he covers players, not grass. He knows the game. He just can't always do what his mind wants him to do because he is one of the slowest starting linebackers in the NFL. But sometimes he's a half a step early. He does really nice stuff, and he deserves to go up, even if his upside isn't great. And then in the secondary, I want to shout out to Damari Mathis. We did raise him in the last week's episode. I want to protect myself against any inherent pre-draft bias I might have on Damari Mathis, because he certainly had his ups and downs this year. And I raised him for some flashes in playing time last week, but he certainly has played his best 3 weeks of football here, and definitely an exciting player. I really liked Damari Mathis's tape. He was one of my guys. I shocked a lot of people when he made my top 10 corners list, but viewers of this channel were not surprised to see him come off the board rather early. He's got all the tools to be a starter in this league, so it's been fun to see him kind of fill in with Bradley Roby out, fill in and be a starting caliber player for them. And as you look at this defense next year, that's a player that I would really be excited to see if he can kind of cement himself as the number 2 starter heading into next year, because we know they need to find some stuff like that if they're going to turn this thing around as a team. And then Isang Bassi, he has come in really off the street. They drafted him 3 years ago. He never really did much. He ends up on the Chargers for a little bit, and now he's back. And he's been filling in for K'Wan Williams in the slot, and he hasn't been covering all that well, but he seems to have learned a little bit from K'Wan, just coming downhill, filling the run from the slot, and doing a lot of that stuff. So that's commendable, but I don't know. He's got to learn how to cover somebody, even if he's tackling well. And then P.J. Locke, another Texas safety here. They like their Texas boys with they draft Caden Stearns as well, but P.J. Locke's been around here and hasn't really done a whole lot, but he starts week 10 and has a really nice play on the ball. Good start in general, so I don't know if there's a whole lot there, but a commendable start worthy of a boost. Then we've got the Chargers, which not a ton to report here, honestly. I mean, this team's just kind of gone stale, and I think Chargers fans even agree with that. And that's epitomized here by their star of the month being their backup center. For what it's worth, he has been a godsend. Corey Linsley, as good as he is, has had a hard time staying healthy this year. And thank goodness Will Clapp, who Joe Lombardi brings over from New Orleans, has been pretty much a rock in pass protection at center. Now, he's got no get-off or athleticism moving forward for their run game, which they'd appreciate, and that's what they get when they get Lindsley in there. But hey, Clapp's an experienced veteran, and he's been able to handle some really tough defensive lines over the last few weeks. So he continues to go up. But unfortunately, I am going to lower Justin Herbert just one. I originally had -2 here for Herbert, but it's so difficult to separate what is very clearly a drop-off in Justin Herbert's play. The explosive plays aren't so much there. There's not a ton of improv here, and some of the mistakes have started to pile up. Not like pile up, but they've been there. I don't know, man. It's just been kind of uninspiring play from Justin Herbert with a few flashes of some of the things we're so excited about. I think he can get back on the right track here, but it's hard not to admit that his stock is down at least a little bit from where we were coming into the year, where we were saying, he's poised to maybe enter the Mahomes Allen conversation, and he's kind of gone slightly in the opposite direction. I don't think this is an unfair treatment of how he played. He's still, in my eyes, in the top 6 to 8 quarterbacks, but he certainly hasn't emerged in the way you may have hoped. But some of these receivers, I would say, Herbert's doing a good job with what he's got, right? Like DeAndre Carter, Josh Palmer, these guys are fine. Carter's a shorter guy with some good route running. We lowered him last week or last episode because he's struggled at parts in this season, but he has played much better these last few weeks. And then Josh Palmer, that Chiefs game was really impressive. It looked like he was ready to take the reins and bring some excitement as this team's number 2 wide receiver, maybe provide an out to Keenan Allen. And then the next 2 weeks, just kind of they target him a bunch, but no explosiveness really. I just don't see Josh Palmer as a crazy high upside player. I don't know. He has shown some flashes, though, so it's possible. Gerald Everett is going to go up. He's having his best season, definitely his most efficient season. I think they should retain him and Herbert, unless they're running stick routes. They have a pretty good rapport vertically down the field, and they can continue to evolve that chemistry, I think. And then on the offensive line, we are going to lower Trey Pipkins after we raised him last week. So this team, it's like... You know where I'm going with this? It's like one thing right happens and then another thing wrong happens. Well, last episode we lowered DeAndre Carter. Okay, he turns things back around. Josh Palmer has a great game week 11. Next 2 weeks doesn't really show a whole lot despite all the opportunities in the world. Trey Pipkins, we raised him to an episode ago, and now he's going down after getting worked the last couple weeks. This team is really struggling to build any sort of momentum as this season has gone on. But yeah, like I said, Trey Pipkins has been murdered in pass protection the last couple of weeks. And then Jamari Sawyer, maybe the one thing that is really building on this offense. He has been a really special find for a 6th-round pick. He did have a bit of a hiccup against the Kansas City Chiefs, but over the course of the season, he has been everything but a problem at left tackle and has, as we've said, been a great answer when they lost Rashawn Slater. And then defensively, not a whole lot to report here either. Khalil Mack is going to continue to go down. The dude's going to be 32 years old. We had him rated once upon a time as an elite player, and it's just tough. Like, when a guy, he's still a good pass rusher, right? So it's tough to lower a guy that's still playing at a pretty good level, but when he is rated as highly as he is, you're starting to see that decline a little bit here. So it's just time he comes down, which I think Chargers fans can probably agree with. It's not that he's been a disappointment, but he just hasn't been peak Khalil Mack either. And then just one note here, Kenneth Murray, the linebacker out of Oklahoma, former first-round pick, has really had some flashes, flying around in coverage, made some splash plays against the run, but just still continues to struggle to be in the right place at the right time. I liked what I've seen the last couple weeks, but I'm not ready to jump back on the Kenneth Murray wagon as he's had a really rough season. So there are your LA Chargers. It's a tough team to talk about at the moment, and I think for Chargers fans, there's a lot of just dissatisfaction with the way that this season has gone, even if they're right in the playoff mix. One more quick plug. I want to remind you guys, if you're getting through this, you enjoy my analysis, make sure you are checking out and subscribed to my podcast. We have a second YouTube channel for the podcast. That link is in the description below, or just search Fully Inflated Football Podcast. Last week, we did our ranking of all 32 NFL front offices by tiers. Great episode. And you can also follow it in your audio feeds, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Fully Inflated Football Podcast. Okay, two more teams to go. The Kansas City Chiefs, star of the month. Had a few options here, but I think I'm going to go with the most noteworthy pleasant surprise of the bunch here, and that is Trent McDuffie. Now, only getting a +1 here because I think very highly of Trent McDuffie, and I thought this pick was phenomenal. We alluded to it at the in the last Studs and Duds that, you know, he's starting to get on the field, hasn't played yet, and in the last month, really coming on. Has totally gotten that starting job that you knew was owed to him if you look at it that way. But either way, he's balling the hell out, man. You can't target Trent McDuffie right now. He looks primed to be this team's number 2 corner, opposite of L'Jarius Sneed, who's also balling out right now. Could have been a star of the month candidate himself. And then, I mean, let's just knock out all these corners right now. That puts a lot of pressure on Joshua Williams, who has also supplanted himself a 4th-round rookie as a starter. And as this team looks towards the playoffs now, you're feeling really good about Sneed and McDuffie at this point. And Williams is playing really well for what he is, but can Williams hold up? That's going to be a big topic of conversation because it seems, barring injury, these are your 3 corners moving forward as they've sorted through some stuff this year. But it's all pretty good right now in the cornerback room for this defense. But let's talk about the offense a little bit. Patrick Mahomes is going to get a +1, which is a big deal when you're already the highest rated quarterback in the game for me. And it's been the mental side of the thing of all this with Patrick Mahomes, taking better care of the football, playing great in structure, the clutch play, the clutch drive against the Chargers was also phenomenal against the Jags the week before that. Mahomes has really separated himself as the best quarterback in the NFL, which, you know, this stuff changes, man. It was not looking like that after the first month. Josh Allen outplays Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead, but ever since then, Mahomes has played better than he has. Looking more like that 2018 version of himself where he's just not making mistakes. He's incredible out of structure and great in structure. Meanwhile, Josh Allen has proceeded to regress back to the guy that wants to throw the ball to the defense a couple times a game, seemingly. But let's talk about the rest of the offense here. Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie running back. You know, I like him. I feel like I've been a little hesitant on Pacheco. He's really explosive. He's been breaking tackles. He's shown some nice vision out there. I still think the Chiefs are quietly looking for a more reliable guy. I think Pacheco, every now and then you'll see the vision just like, oh man, that was a big hole. And there are some big holes here in Kansas City. This might be the most friendly offense in the league for a running back right now because of the way defenses play them and how good the Chiefs' run blocking is up front. But Pacheco is making a lot out of that, and you got to give him some love for that. Then the tight end room has been nice. I mean, Kelsey's doing what he's doing. We added him to the 99 club in the last episode. But Jody Fortson, their project tight end, has had a few fun moments now, man. He's got some athletic tools, some route running prowess, good hands. They scheme him up well, but he executes. So definitely someone to keep an eye on, Jody Fortson. And then Noah Gray has just been a much more reliable, less explosive option at tight end. He's been run blocking really well. You know, they don't love to lean on Travis Kelce for that, but Gray's had reliable hands when they throw him the ball. You know, Gray's a nice mid-round pick that's carved out a nice role as a tight end too here in the NFL. And then on the offensive line, Trey Smith, another star of the month candidate here for Kansas City. We actually lowered him in the last episode because his pass protection had really been an issue, and the run blocking hadn't really been where we know it's capable of being for Trey Smith. And I don't know if he watches Studs and Duds or not, but he played as if someone was talking crap about him for the last month. His best month of football in the NFL so far. And if he plays like that, I mean, he has been deleting guys in the run game. He's been awesome in pass protection. He's been just fun to watch, which isn't always the case for offensive guards. You'll see him make a highlight, and then you'll keep an eye on him for the next few plays as you're watching the Chiefs, and you just notice this guy kicking ass. So Trey Smith +2, and then Creed Humphrey as well continues his ascension towards being considered the best center in the NFL. I think he's been the most consistent center in the NFL over the last couple of years. You know, Corey Linsley, when he plays, is awesome. We're seeing some pretty special stuff from Kelsey this year in Philadelphia, and Frank Ragnow as well. But Creed Humphrey he's just such a freaking moving brick wall. So much strength and consistency. The technique really flawless. He's not a remarkable athlete, but he's got plenty. Love Creed Humphrey. Then we got to talk about Sky Moore as well. So I like Sky Moore. I've got him rated pretty well, but it's been really fun to see him get out there, get an opportunity as they've had some injuries to like Juju and Mecole. Sky Moore has been called upon and met the bill. Good to see him playing up to that 73 rating I have on him, and if he continues to produce, he will go up. But let's talk about this defense. So Carlos Dunlap is going to come down. Free agent signing. This dude's like 5,000 years old at this point. He can still defend the run because he's so big, so strong, knows what he's looking at, but there's just not a lot of juice left there from a pass rushing perspective. Seems Seattle let him go at the right time. And I am a little bit worried about the high-end upside of this pass rush on the edge for the Chiefs as we look towards the playoffs. But inversely, George Karlaftis is playing better, which is good to see. I mean, Karlaftis did not come out the gate strong for this Chiefs team, a player that I felt like had a rather high floor, and that's something you got to think about. We haven't really lowered Karlaftis. He's been fine, but really the last month he's come on. He's been winning pass rush snaps at a much higher rate, and if he can build that into the playoffs, that'll really benefit everything we said about these corners on the back end. But Mike Dana is going to go up as well. He's more of a role player here. He's been more of a run defender in his time in Kansas City, but getting after the quarterback a little bit more than we've seen traditionally from him. I'm not going to say there's some hidden upside there, but it's good to know you can play him on all three downs if you need to. And then Nick Bolton, yet another Star of the Month candidate for Kansas City. Honestly, he had a little bit of a hiccup against Cincinnati, though, was kind of put in a blender there. Both in the run and in coverage. But overall, on his season, he's legit been one of the best linebackers in the NFL. His instincts are as good as they get, man. He's a half a step early, and when he arrives, he lays the lumber. So he's a good run defender. But it's not just that. You see every week he jumps hitch routes and comes down quickly to the flat in coverage. Like, he's not the most versatile coverage player, but he can do enough underneath. So Nick Bolton's really caught my eye the more and more Chiefs I watch. He's just such a better linebacker than I ever thought he'd be. I didn't hate Nick Bolton, but I did not think he would be a number one linebacker in the NFL, and he has been. And then we kind of, talked about these corners already, but Josh Williams showing what the Chiefs liked in him, the length, the press, the physicality, has had a very up and down season in coverage. But it's commendable for a guy that I thought was more of a raw developmental guy. He's stepped in and been a decent fit as this team's number 3 corner. And then L'Jarius Sneed, man, the two pass breakups against the Chargers. He gets the interception week 12 against the Rams. They played the Rams. Great interception by L'Jarius Sneed. Dude's just such a playmaker, such a freak athlete. They've got him playing back in the slot now because he does make the most sense there. And he's perfectly comfortable there and ready to rock and roll as we move towards the playoffs. And then at safety, Brian Cook keeps playing more and more. You haven't really noticed him in coverage, but that's not always a bad thing. There hasn't been a lot of ball production, but you also don't see him getting cooked all the time. No pun intended there. But been a secure tackler coming downhill. And then Juan Thornhill as well has struggled. He really feels like he's on the way out here. When they drafted Brian Cook in the second round, felt like that was kind of the plan there. And he has really been giving up a lot in coverage and just not anticipating a whole lot from the deep part of the field. Hasn't been as good as a tackler, so things definitely feel like they're falling apart for Juan Thornhill. I also didn't mention Willie Gay. He is back from suspension and has been flying around, dude, making plays. I like Willie Gay quite a lot. Good to see him kind of resume what has been a positive, a slowly progressive positive trajectory for Willie Gay, but it's better to go north than south, I suppose. And then the kicker, Harrison Butker, big missed kick against the Bengals, incredibly costly, and he just continues to miss kicks. I don't want to slaughter him because he's been so consistent throughout his Chiefs career here, but it's been tough to watch, and he's got to come down. You got to make your kicks. And now our final team. Thanks for your patience, Raiders fans, but here we are, a member of the 99 Club for you, Davante Adams. After we actually lowered him one in the last week's last episode of Studs and Duds, man, he has been on a whole nother level. Like, he was a little bit quiet there mid-season, and I was maybe thinking, all right, he's 30, he doesn't have Rodgers anymore. Is he really going to be the best receiver in the NFL? We know he's really good, but is he going to be the best? And he said, hold my beer, and I'll use my other hand to just moss a bunch of defenders. He's been on a whole nother level. And again, it's one thing to do it when Rodgers is your quarterback. It's another thing to do it when Derek Carr is your quarterback. And it's been the whole package. It's been the separation and the route running. But one thing with Davante Adams that really stands out is his ability to come down with contested catches this year. And it's not that he hasn't done it, and he certainly did in 2021 and 2020. It started to show more and more, but that was always the thing on Davante Adams, was he was a guy that wasn't always one of those big ball winner types. And now it's just so easy for him, and it's one-handed catches. It's going over the back shoulders of guys. It's the showing of late hands just to flash at the last second that he's going to catch the ball, and the DB has no idea the ball is even coming. His understanding of the game, his physicality, his physical ability, it has all reached the pinnacle for Davante Adams. And just the eye test right now, it's even better than I think anything we saw in Green Bay. And I did not really see that coming. I didn't think he'd have some massive fall off, but I did say I don't think he'll be the best receiver in the NFL. And it's either him or Tyreek Hill right now. I don't really know. I mean, Justin Jefferson's awesome too, but Jefferson isn't doing it with the consistency that Adams and Hill are doing it with. And just the complete package. It's incredible what Adams is doing. So tip of the cap to Davante Adams, one of the hardest workers in the league, and finally getting his recognition on my end, joining the 99 Club here. Now, another ultra superstar in place for this offense, Josh Jacobs. And I got to respect how they're just leaning into these guys. They're saying, all right, well, let's just target Davante Adams. Let's give Josh Jacobs the ball. And that's a formula for some good offensive success. And that's what we're seeing. Josh Jacobs has absolutely entered the conversation with those top backs, the Nick Chubbs and oh my gosh. I'm telling you, man, the later this thing goes, we're recording this at 3 a.m. Names start to disappear from you. Jonathan Taylor. Josh Jacobs is in that echelon. He really is. And it's not that's, it's not like that was never an upside possibility for him. He has crazy first step juice. He is full sized. He has power, vision, jump cut ability. Watch the run against the Seahawks, if you can find it, where he gets to the second level, puts on a stiff arm, and then accelerates away from the entire defense. He has legitimate superstar, elite talent at the running back position, and this contract is going to get real fascinating real quick. But Josh Jacobs, an offensive player of the year type season in his own right. and going up again for the third Studs and Duds episode in a row. Mac Holland's going to get some respect here. He's been that just kind of backside dig receiver. He's been very consistent, though, with his hands. Big-bodied guy with some decent tools, having a nice year in, year 6 of his career. And then on the offensive line, these guys continue to impress, really. So Jermaine Illuminor has solidified himself as the starting tackle for this team. I did see he got hurt on Thursday Night Football, which, by the way, this is not going to include Thursday Night Football, with maybe the exception of Devontae Adams, just seeing what he did against Jalen Ramsey, kind of solidifying that 99 club there. But I was actually working on this while that Thursday night game was going on, so didn't pay close enough attention to give you a full Week 14 Thursday Night Football here. We'll get that when we return with Studs and Duds in a month here for the AFC. But anyway, Jermaine Illuminor stepping in at right tackle has been awesome. And when he gets extended opportunities to play, going back to his time in New England, he's a beast. And right now he's been able to stay healthy. He's been a lockdown pass protector, and he's paving ways up front. He's a massive body dude with a ton of play strength out of Texas A&M. There's no reason Jermaine Illuminor can't continue to be a starting caliber offensive lineman for the Raiders moving forward. It's a big find, as honestly is Thayer Munford. And maybe there's a future where one of these guys is a guard, one of them's a tackle, but Munford has played in different stretches. They've had guys hurt at left tackle. Colton Miller at left tackle has missed some time, and Thayer Munford's had to play there. He's played some games at right tackle, and he's pretty much been plug and play in all of his starts. So he's been a real pleasant surprise, man. I didn't think he had the upside to really be a solid starter at the next level, and maybe this is his cap, kind of a swing tackle. Maybe not, though. So, yeah, I mean, he's just been a steal in the 7th round out of Ohio State. And then onto the defense, these veteran defensive linemen really starting to step it up, especially Bilal Nichols. He's looking more and more like that really good defensive tackle that the Bears once had before he kind of disappeared. But doing a little bit of everything, defending the run, getting after the quarterback up front. Love to see it. They had expectations for him to do this when they signed him in free agency, and here he is. And then Andrew Billings, another fascinating guy here. I mean, Billings is an athletic specimen. He's bounced around the league. He's had his issues with consistency, but playing one of his best stretches of football in his career. He's only 27 years old. It's like his 6th or 7th year in the league. But he's been defending the run. He's been pushing the pocket. He's been awesome, playing a little nose tackle, little 3-tech. Really nice find, bringing in Andrew Billings for this team. And then Chandler Jones, the veteran as well. We lowered him 3 last week. I keep saying last week, 4 weeks ago, really, because he had been a complete non-factor for the Raiders. And he completely flips the script. He's got 18 pressures in those last 2 games. Not sure what he did on Thursday night against the Rams, but God, he just completely turned this thing around. He's done this in the last couple years where he'll disappear for stretches and then just light up. I don't know what that is, how to explain it, but you got to give him a little bit back after a really bad season from Chandler Jones. Clelin Ferrell up front as well, the overdrafted former number 4 overall pick. He seems to have a little bit of buy-in here for this Raiders team as they were going on a bit of a late season push there. That was halted against the Rams. Baker Mayfield said nope. But Clelin Ferrell playing the run better than he has in recent years, and going to get a little bit of respect. He's a strong player and can handle the run when he wants to, but that's been the question mark, I think, with him, just because he's not a starter here, and I think he's kind of bummed about that. But anyway, Max Crosby is going to get his flowers here. He's had an excellent season. The pass rush ability is what it was last year, and it's great to see that continue. Him be a dominant pass rusher, but he's been even better against the run. He's been sniffing out anything to the outside. He's been holding his gap, flushing guys back inside. He's been a superstar. He gets that big payday in the offseason, and he's paying it back to the Raiders here. And then Denzel Perriman, another guy that we had lowered in the last episode, who's starting to look like that guy that I fell in love with reviewing film for this team in their deep dive. I mean, when he is on, he's dialed in. He is the first to the football. He will hit you. He can even patrol the sidelines a little bit in coverage, and he's been doing that so much better for the Raiders here. And then in the secondary, all these safeties playing really well right now. They've got a nice trifecta ever since they let Jonathan Abrams go. It's been Roderick Cheemer stepping up into that strong safety role. He's been a good, consistent tackler, hasn't been getting abused in coverage like Abram once was. And then on the back end, Trayvon Merrick's starting to play a lot better. Not going to go up. I think he's had in general a down season based on what we thought about him coming into the year. But he's playing better, could be going up soon. And then Daron Harmon at 31 years old, it seems all he needed to do was be restored to a Patriots system, and he's going to resume as that rangy safety over the top. And yeah, he's been making plays on the ball. He's been really good for them on the back end, honestly. So the defense has settled in, I will say, for the Raiders. The season's not going to end the way they wanted to, but I think you're walking out of here feeling a lot better about the coaching staff and how this team can project into next year. You're finding some answers on the defense, finding some answers for that offensive line. Maybe this team was just a year away, but that is going to do it. Thank you so much for watching, whether you just watched your team or you stuck it out for the whole thing. I really appreciate it. If you are still here and you have not hit that like button, again, it really does help me out. I really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed as well. That's all we got. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I snubbed anyone. And that's it. Peace out, everybody. We'll see you for the next one.